Welcome back to the Speed of Trust Book Study Podcast. I'm your host and MASSP's Executive Director, Wendy Zadeb. Today we're diving into the first wave, the four cores of credibility on pages 61 through 128. Covey reminds us that trust starts from the inside out, through integrity, intent, capabilities, and results. When these cores are strong, trust grows, speed increases, and the tax on our work decreases. To bring this to life, I'm joined by Monte Kelly, principal of Fruitport Middle School. Monte's path, which was rooted in special education and transition services, to returning to the classroom, and now has 5 years leading Fruitport Middle School. It shaped him as the leader who consistently champions students who don't always get the benefit of the doubt. His perspective on modeling integrity, clarifying intent, building staff capacity, and celebrating results is a perfect fit for this section of the book. So let's jump in. Super excited to be with Monte Kelly this morning, who's the principal at Fruitport Middle School. So Monte, could you just tell us a little bit about your career path and maybe start all the way back from where you went to college all the way until you got to be sitting in the desk that you're in today?
Yeah, absolutely. I might even back up a little further, because if you asked me in middle school if I would have been sitting in a middle school chair as a principal, I think most people around me would probably laugh a little bit, including myself. Yeah, I grew up in education. My mom was a speech language pathologist and worked with kids with disabilities and things like that. So I was around it a lot and started having a passion for maybe heading down this path. But I actually got into music and skateboarding and punk rock and all that crazy stuff. And so I thought I was going to be a rock star. So I might be one of the only principals that's full sleeve tattoos. Thought I was going a different direction, but I really think that that put me in a good spot for where I'm at now. Just kind of the way I look at things. So yeah, kind of went through all that, and then early on in college, kind of figured out that I had a passion for working with kind of people that might not always get the benefit of the doubt. So I had a passion for kids with disabilities, kind of with my background with my mom, and then just kind of maybe the outcasts, maybe the people that people kind of look past and like, well, we tried. That's it. And so I kind of had a heart for those folks. So, which is pretty cool, because it put me in a really good spot here, in my opinion. But yeah, through college, started working at a group home, was like kind of a job coach for some kids and some things like that. And then went into special education was my major, elementary ed, which I've actually never used, but elementary ed and then special ed. And 2006, decided to take my first job in Colorado. So growing up in Iowa is where I was at, University of Northern Iowa, great teaching college, and then moved out west and quickly started just loving what I was doing there. Was a center-based, I guess you would call it like a CI teacher out here. Did that for 4 years, kind of pushed the envelope a little bit. Unfortunately, sometimes the expectations for some of those programs aren't always the highest. And I kind of went in there and pushed the envelope a little bit, and I did pretty good. And then loved what I was doing, but still had a passion to kind of keep moving. And so I went into a transition coordinator position, working with our special ed 18 to 21. Michigan's amazing because we go to, I think, 26, but Colorado is 21. So I did that for a year, and then found myself moving into an assistant principal role at one of the junior highs out there, but 6, 7, 8 as well. So did that for a couple of years, and then unfortunately, my mom got sick and kind of had to navigate some stuff there, and she ended up passing. And so I went back into the classroom, which actually was a really cool perspective, because a lot of administrators don't always get that perspective of being an admin and then going back to the classroom to kind of get that lens. And then I was obviously back in the administrative role eventually as well. So, and that was awesome, because I felt like there was some things that I learned significantly during those 5 years when I was going back into the classroom that really helped me out with a different perspective. So went back into much more of a general ed type setting. I was teaching special ed resource, but very collaborative with the general ed staff and doing a lot of reading intervention and things like that. Then we moved, well, we had twin boys. So I met my wife, who is from Grand Haven. And so she had got a job out in Colorado, and we had twin boys. I lived out there for a couple more years, but it was tough without family. So in 2018, we moved out to Michigan, which was kind of the perfect timing right before COVID, because we were at least with family out here. And then, yeah, we came out here. I worked for the Ottawa ISD, again, in kind of the transition role, working for young adult services with 18 to 26 population. Love that. And then just kind of was looking, just ready for that admin role again once I kind of got settled into Michigan for a few years, and fell into the role at Fruitport Middle School as the principal. And this is my 5th year.
Awesome. Well, I love that story. It's interesting. You've had a lot of twists and turns.
A
So,
little bit, yeah.
yeah. And like you said, your background, with special education and students that, need and deserve that extra care and attention that's awesome. So I love hearing all of that. That's great. I love knowing
Awesome.
your story. All
Thank you.
right, so we are going to dive into Stephen Covey's The Speed of Trust book today, and we are talking about the first wave, 4 cores of credibility. So, Monty, I knew you were going to be a capable, amazing human, and I gave you a huge section of the book, which is pages
Yeah.
1 through 128. So, before we delve into the book, though, could you just tell me something new or different that's happening at Fruitport Middle School? How have you noticed it changing the student experience?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there's so many different things that we're doing. We're always kind of pushing the envelope. Trista Stingle, assistant principal, and I came in together, and we really focused a lot on just climate and culture. We really wanted to get staff and students to want to be here. And once they want to be here, then all the magical things that education brings happens. But you have to do that. So we kind of looked at a couple different angles. One of the things I want to talk about was through our PBIS structures, respect, responsibility, integrity. We kind of call it the Trojan way, kind of our mantra. We've done a lot with that. We even have a whole day called the Trojan Way Day, where we really buy into that mantra and that mentality. But we kind of use our Trojan tickets as a monetary system, and so students can use those. They can go in and use those to buy things, but also to gain access. And we turned an old computer lab, which most people don't really use anymore, into more of a recreational space. And the students named it. We went through them, so it's called the Trojan Zone. And then we had parent volunteers, and then we were able to do some fundraising. We have some really cool things in there: ping pong table, pool table, foosball, basketball, everything in there. A couple of Nintendo Switches. And the students can earn to go in there during lunch. We have parent volunteers who sign up to come in there. It's a great connection for them, trying to bring the community into the building. And then teachers can also check it out as an incentive. Maybe they did really well in their iReady test and they want to go in there for a little bit. It's just a really awesome, unique space. And we're very fortunate that we have something like that for the kids.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, thanks for sharing about it. It's very cool. All right, well, let's jump into the speed of trust. This section of the book focuses on integrity and asks, are you congruent? Explaining that to build trust, leaders not only need to be honest, but also humble and courageous. There's a quote from Warren Buffett. I look for 3 things in hiring people. The first is personal integrity. The second is intelligence. And the third is a high energy level. But if you don't have the first, the other 2 will kill you. Warren Buffett is the CEO of Berkshire Hathaway, a multinational conglomerate holding company. I think these things are things that you look for when you're hiring, and can also apply to schools. Why or why not? And what would kind of be your top 3?
Right. So I think one thing I love about this book is this is not just done through the lens of education. It's big picture, and there's a lot of great examples that come from the business world and just a million different things. So and his personal experiences. I would say, yeah, with as far as Personal integrity, intelligence, and high energy level. Personal integrity is huge for me. That's probably the one that stands out the most, and we'll get into it more as we talk. I feel like that's just the person who can stand on that. Without the integrity, the other two can kind of fall short. You kind of have to have that one. So, but I would say as far as intelligence, I mean, I trust that, a new teacher is coming out from college and their program and those kind of things. And we have seen there are programs that are more solid than other programs. And I think a lot of that for me comes down to the experience they have in the classroom. Unfortunately, there's a few programs where they're not really in front of kids. So I think that's something in the hiring process for me. Sort of the intelligence. It's not just the book smart, but the intelligence you've had from the experience of getting in front of kids. And I'd say high energy level. Shoot, middle school. That's probably something that I want to see. But it really depends because we've hired so many different teachers with different dynamics and energy levels. And I think the energy level, it can be in your mind, it can be superficial on the outside, but it's not always like that. It can be the energy that you have inside you, the calmness and the demeanor where you're not always picking up the rope that middle school kids will sometimes want to throw at you. So it's kind of cool to see that, but you definitely have to have a drive to want to be here. I don't think you ever end up in middle school by accident.
Yes, yes. I used to have to hear in their answers that they love kids.
Right.
I mean, content is great,
Yeah.
like having that knowledge, like you said, I trust you came through college, you're going to have that ability, but
Right.
like, I can't teach somebody to like kids.
Right. 100%.
And I think all of us where you question whether or not the person likes kids, and that makes a huge difference. So if I don't hear someone routinely saying in their answers, like I don't feel from them the heart of I love kids,
Right.
that's not someone I'm going to hire.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think so. My wife is more on the early childhood and elementary side, and I get that all the time. Where secondary can easily be more focused on the content and things like that, where elementary can be more focused on the teaching practice and kids and things like that. But at middle school, I still want to hear that. I still want to hear
Yeah,
that they want to be with kids.
absolutely. All right, so we have a tall order in today's
Yes.
podcast because, as I mentioned, this is a big swath of the book,
Yeah.
and we're going to be focused on those four cores of integrity, intent, capabilities, and results. As you read these sections, is there one that you particularly leaned into?
Yeah, I kind of mentioned earlier that Integrity, not only one of my favorite bands because there's a punk hardcore band called Integrity, but um, I feel like that's just one that if people don't know that you stand for something and that you're going to follow through, everything else can be kind of lip service. So all the other things, as we get into, I really enjoyed in the book. Intent, capabilities, results. Obviously, people at the end of the day do want to see the final result. That you're not just going to talk about something; you're going to be about it and see it. But if you don't have the integrity to rely on yourself to set that alarm to get up and do it, to respond to those emails, even if it's you got 200 of them. I think people are gonna they see through that pretty quick. And especially I'm in a building where unfortunately there's a lot of turnover with admin, and there was pretty much every 4 or 5 years there'd be a new principal, maybe a new assistant principal. It was kind of this revolving thing. So I had to build a lot of trust with staff, that I'm coming in here with good intentions and I'm going to listen. And there was a little bit of us versus them mentality. And we really, really, like I talked earlier about building the culture, trying to get past that. So there always is a time and a place where I have to just make the decision. I get that. That's part of the sitting in the chair. But we really do a lot with our teams. And we've made some tough decisions the last few years, that we think is in best interest for kids and for learning.
Yeah, for sure. So in core number two, it's about intent and what is your agenda. And I think sometimes we can get a little jaded as school administrators. Every time someone comes in our office, we're wondering what is their agenda, right?
Right.
So he shares with us some interesting stories to understand intent. And I was kind of surprised about the story that he shared where his dad left his mom on the side of the road.
I love that. It was amazing. I died laughing and I had to share it with my whole family. I was reading that part up at the lake and I'm like, you gotta be kidding me.
And you can picture it, as he's
100%.
describing it. But I was like, wow, I mean, luckily it worked out, that somebody called the police and everything, but
Yeah.
that was a pretty intense story.
Yeah, well, and I lived in Colorado for 12 years and I know it was Montana, but like that's life and death when you're talking about, being in the mountains, stranded and all that. But
Yes.
the whole story, yeah, really resonated with me um, quite a bit.
Yeah. All right, so I turned to page 80, and on page 80, there's some bullet points that I want to get into. It's a key thought for school administrators. I think that they'll be able to relate to when exploring issues of agenda and intent. Um, how often, okay, so here we are on page 80. As we
Yep.
prepare to explore the issue of intent, you may want to ask yourself questions such as the following. How often do I discount or tax what someone says because I'm suspicious about the person's intent? What kind of tax is my organization paying because employees don't trust management's intent? What is the impact on speed and cost? What kind of tax are we paying as a team because we're suspicious of one another's motives? What kind of tax am I paying because people question my own intent? What can I do to improve and better communicate my intent? Questions such as these will help you to prepare your mind and heart as we look at the what constitutes intent and how we can improve it. And that's another thing I appreciate about this book is he kind of points out to us and at times had me feeling kind of bad about myself. And then he says, and how we can improve it.
Right.
So that there's always this opportunity to kind of dig yourself out of the hole, so to speak. But as principals, it can be hard not to be jaded and make those assumptions and come to conclusions when it comes to intent. So why is this, teacher, parent, student in my office, and what do they really want? When
Yeah.
someone's in asking us or telling us something, and also the flip side, how are teachers, parents, and students questioning our motives and our intent? So what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, I have a lot of parents and students and teachers in my office, and we're going through that. And I, I honestly, I just go back to I try to be real. And in my conversations with them, everyone's got their own story, their own background. So when the parents coming in, a lot of times it's validating. Like we might not come to a consensus, we might not be able to come to a great conclusion, but sometimes it's just they want to be heard. They want to be able to get their voice out. And so I try to be a real person with them as much as possible. If there's any common ground, I'll sit down next to them. I'm not over my desk, like have a real conversation. So I think the intent that I'm trying to show them is that I care and that, at the end of the day, what do we all want? We want the child to be successful at school. We want them to feel safe. We want them to feel connected. We want them to get their education. Somewhere along the lines, we're going to have to find that common ground. And so I pride myself on just my ability to just sit down and have real conversations and try to get to the conclusion that we want. And that's with kids too. And I know the book talks a lot about vulnerability and things like that. And I'll tell the stories of when I made mistakes and when I was sitting on the other side of the table as a kid and some of those things. And that's just kind of who I am as a person. I don't have anything to hide. I want to just be a real person that people can connect with. And then with that, then all the trust comes from that because they know that there's an authenticity that they're getting from me. And then on the other side of the table, when I'll have a teacher and they're coming in and we're trying to navigate something, I've noticed a lot that there's maybe baggage from other
Mhm.
experience that they have. So some of the tax that I'm paying on that isn't even my own. It's other experiences, especially teachers who've been here a while and they've seen a revolving door of different expectations, different things. I have to navigate that. And one thing that we did a lot that Tristan and I spent time on was just getting to know the history of where they are. Because like we're looking at what we have it now, we added back in an advisory time for students. But that was a hot topic. And we actually had it when we started here, and it wasn't going well. We actually got rid of it for a little bit, reformatted some structures of how we do business, and then we brought it back. But that wasn't just like, okay, it's back. It was, we navigated, we validated, we wanted to really see, what does this look like? We had probably 6 different meetings between the school improvement team and the committee looking at adding in the advisory. And so that to me is, validating and really trying to understand my intent, but also the intent of what the teachers want to get out of it.
You brought up the word tax, and I think that's so true as school administrators, especially if you're new to a building, and potentially inheriting, baggage from prior administrators, especially from veteran teachers who have been through a number of different people and
Mhm.
had different expectations. It's not, you didn't bring those things in, but you still have to
Right.
realize that there's some underlying concerns or lack of trust because of that. So that definitely presents, its own challenge. So if we move on to core number 3, which is capabilities, and are you relevant? Covey explains in this chapter, we move from the cores of credibility that focus on character to those that focus on competence. The first dimension of competence is capabilities, the talent, skills, knowledge, capabilities, and abilities we have that enable us to perform with excellence. To me, this was like such an important piece because it's that idea that trust is 2 things. It's competence and it's credibility. And to me, I kind of also think like about credibility as integrity, like those things are kind of wrapped together. So on page 95, he makes a point that to me is kind of particularly relevant. And I'll read that section. Capable people are credible. They inspire trust. It's that simple. You can have the other 3 cores, you can have integrity and good intent, and you can even produce good results in the past. But at the end of the day, especially in this rapidly changing collaborative age, if you don't have current capabilities, if you are not relevant, you will not have credibility. You'll be taxed. You won't get the dividends of trust. An example of someone who has the other 3 cores but does not have capabilities would be somebody who is honest and caring and provides the results necessary to be promoted to a new level of responsibility that he doesn't have the competence to handle. This is the Peter Principle in action of promoting people to the level of their incompetence. If he simply relies on the skills that got him to where he is, if he isn't involved in constantly learning, growing, and developing new skills, he won't have what's necessary to succeed in this new situation. He's like a family doctor who's asked to perform a brain surgery. May not be very competent in the practice. He may be very competent in the practice of family medicine, but he doesn't have what it takes to perform with excellence in his new assignment. So how do you think that relates to where we are as administrators in today's changing environment with artificial intelligence and all the other changes that are going on in terms of innovation?
Yeah, great question. And even before I dive into AI, just the principal idea of not just always doing what you've always done. And I
Mhm.
think that's something that, I keep talking about what we've done in this building, but Tristan and I really, assess, okay, we've done it this way, but are we getting the results that we want? If you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same results. So I just credit our building on having those tough conversations of maybe rethinking how we do things. And AI is a part of that. Last year, when I was reading the Ethan Mollick's co-intelligence book and all that, he coined the phrase invite AI to the table. And in that, I feel like we've really tried to do that with our staff. And honestly, give them almost like permission, like it's okay, like we need to embrace this, because I think at first it was almost like this, what is this thing, like this is going to ruin education, what kids are going to cheat, yada yada. And now it's like, if you're not using AI, you're behind the 8 ball. And I think we are diving into that every year. It just seems like it's just evolved even from a month ago. Like I went to a workshop the other day using Canva, and Canva is a great tool. Didn't realize that it had a really good AI component. And so as I'm working through that, Andy Mann from the ISD is telling me about this site that we go to. It wasn't Canva, it was similar. And even the day before, one feature wasn't even there the day before. He's like, I didn't even know you could do video. And it's really cool because you actually, I'm gonna do a little plug on this. You can, instead of like OpenAI where it takes the whole world, you can, like, let's say I put in my handbook. So I put in my student handbook, maybe the last couple of years, I upload that. So instead of OpenAI, it's only looking at these two pieces. And then within that, you can make it where there's two people talking like a podcast like this about my handbook.
Yes.
And then I can even ask it questions. And now there's a video component to that. So I'm just giving an example of like how I'm trying to use this. I really wanted to do the Canva training so I can maybe do some cool things with newsletters and just spruce up my presentations with staff and students and things like that. But I think the AI, you gotta be moving. You definitely have to give it a shot. We have done many trainings with our staff, school AI. We have a few different apps that they use, and we're constantly giving them collaborative time to look at that. Our technology teachers here are always bringing back new tools when they go to the trainings. So we're definitely embracing it. But it's just like anything, you know, it can be a great thing, and then it cannot be. It just kind of depends on the use and how you do it.
Yeah, for sure. So, you know, I one of the things I hear, I know principals are, I mean, the job in itself is just countless hours, and it's so hard to just, you know, just do the requirements of the job, let alone stay ahead of the learning curve on something like this. And, you know, if we want to remain relevant, we have not taught in this environment, right? So like we aren't using these tools. We haven't taught, you know, students, and we haven't designed lessons using these tools. So
Right.
how do you stay relevant to your teaching staff, you know, when you haven't really walked the talk?
Yeah, I think I try to model it. I think like I'll try to use AI in a presentation with staff. I'll try to show them, you know, different uses of it. Sometimes it's just image creation. Sometimes it's, you know, like, well, this video actually is something that I came from AI that I did. I use it a lot too for just general brainstorming. So we'll be in a meeting with staff, and we're talking about maybe how we can do a professional development. And so we actually used it. The hot topic this summer was a certain movie on Netflix with Adam Sandler that everybody watched. And I thought that'd be fun to do something with staff. So we're doing some putt-putt stuff. But it was just like, you know what? I threw in kind of how I envisioned it going, and then it ran with it. And then so I think just modeling and just playing with it yourself. And, you know, I definitely just encourage teachers to give it a shot. We're using it on Monday, actually, on Wednesday next week for our PD. We are working on our PLCs, and we're deconstructing standards and all that. And one of the presenters
Oh,
is
perfect.
coming
Yeah.
in to actually use the AI portion of that and how AI can help deconstruct standards and save them some work. So I'm really excited about that. So I think I just have to keep inviting AI to the table in any way I can.
That's awesome. Thanks for all those examples too. I think that's really helpful.
Yeah,
I think, I mean, personally, I could talk about this all day because it's just such
yeah,
a level of interest of mine, but we've
yeah.
got to jump ahead. So let's get into the last one of the four core, which is results. And this might sound strange because there's no doubt that results matter when it comes to school leadership, but to me, it actually feel like results have an accountability have kind of dialed back a little bit. I don't hear people talking about test scores like they used to. You know, like it used to be the second SAT scores came out, a lot of local newspapers would like run all the schools in the county, you know, in order.
Hmm.
And you just don't see, I don't think quite the emphasis that there used to be. Do you agree with that? And if you feel like it's shifted like from test scores, what are the other ways that school administrators are being held accountable?
Yeah, great question. I think for some reason, I think COVID played a role in just how education is looked at times. I think during that time, like how we prioritized education, it just kind of took a little bit backseat. People got comfortable being home. And so I don't know if that's completely related, but I do feel like there's been maybe a little shift there. I feel like I'm going to kind of go broad when it comes to results and things because everybody wants to see the results. They want to see the numbers. And I think those definitely give us information. I would say for me, the like state testing is fantastic, but the day-to-day iReady data, some of that formative assessment data, some of those things that drives instruction, to me, that's a little bit more real-time things
Mhm.
that our teachers are doing through the PLC process. So, everybody wants to see, that carrot, dangle that carrot at the end of the day. But I just don't feel that drives to me. So another example, I do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and I train and I do that. And we actually have a program here at the school, which is also a cool plug. But through that, I remember early on when I was doing it, I called up my buddy Chris out in Wisconsin, and I was like, "Man, I feel like I'm doing good, but I haven't been promoted." And he's like, "Yeah, you want that carrot, man. You want that thing. But if you're trusting the process and you're chasing the skills, that stuff comes along the way." And years later, now I'm like, okay, I get it. Actually, I don't want that next belt because that means there's this level of responsibility, and I'm good with where I'm at because I know that I probably don't have those skills that go with that belt. And I feel like in education and with grades and with scores and all that, it's the same thing. We have to focus on the skills. It's not so much just all those, the numbers at the end of the day. We want to make sure kids are getting what they need. And again, I pride ourselves on our building of thinking outside the box and how we intervene with kids at a tier 1, tier 2, tier 3 level, trying different things. And we have a lot of really good things going with our interventionists, and trying to meet kids where they are and building those skills that eventually the numbers will then support.
Oh, I love that. That's such a great example. So, when we kind of think about a solid history of results for today's school administrator, like if you wanted to apply for a different position, become a superintendent, what
Mhm.
does a good track record look like of results for a school principal today?
Yeah. I think it's recognizing, not taking the data personal, but being able to use that. Like, just because you have, you're unsatisfactory or not proficient in something, like what you do with that information to me is more meaningful. So, okay, we're low here. Our scores are not great, but what you do with that is the next step. So I think any administrator who's going to be successful has to constantly be humble enough to say, "Yeah, it's actually this might not be working. We need to rethink this." I would say over the last 4 years, we've changed our bell schedule. We've changed when lunches are. We've changed how we do advisory. We've changed. I mean, you name it. Like we're constantly being like, okay, yeah, let's push the envelope in a different direction. I think in my career, that's something I'm comfortable doing. But there's a way to do it. I also am not the principal who came in and been like, "This is what you guys are doing." Nope, we're doing something different. Like there is absolutely a way to do it where you're still validating the people that are in the building that have been doing the hard work. Their intentions are great, but we just all as a table, they're saying it's also not working. So I'm not coming in saying, "Hey, what you guys are doing isn't working." We're all collaboratively being like, "You know what? We need to change." And so I think how you bring those people to the table and really validate them and then come to a general consensus that sometimes takes time and it can be messy, but I'm good getting messy as long as we get to the result that we really want.
That's awesome. So, a solid track record of results is listening to people, collaborating, admitting when you need to do something differently or make a change, and making it happen.
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So, can you recall a time when someone's results made you trust them more? This could be personal or professional.
Yeah, I think it's easy for people to, talk, this is what I would do. And I'm going to bring back in jujitsu again because there's different people. Sometimes the color belt, yeah, at the end of the day, it just holds your pants up. But if you don't have the skills that back that up, but a friend of ours, his name's JT Torres, he's basically like an Olympic gold medalist in our sport. And he's actually coming to our gym in Muskegon tonight and tomorrow. He's a guy who can back it up. He's done that, but he's one of the most humble, nicest guys that all he wants to do is build up other people and other gyms and other skills. And so he comes out here and, we're this little school in Muskegon and he's this like 4-time world champion. And he's actually sat in my office and he wants to know about how we're building this jujitsu program at my school for kids. and which is we work with a lot of at-risk kids in that program, and it's just pushing the envelope, just doing something different, trying to get kids connected. If they're not connected with jujitsu, it's fine. There's robotics, there's this. Everybody needs to find their person or their thing, and for me, that's just one thing that's worked really well. But as far as me trusting, he's got the track record. He's done all the things, and so when you can see that, it's pretty cool to have somebody like that you get to work side by side with.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a great connection you have. How cool.
Yeah.
All right. So if principals and assistant principals were only to remember or take away one thing from this swath of the book, what would it be?
And I kind of skipped, that's a great question. I kind of skipped my notes earlier on page 65 when Gandhi was talking about kind of walking the talk. So I'm going to go back to that real quick, because that kind of personifies kind of what I was thinking, and then I'll answer your question a little bit better. So Gandhi says, what Gandhi thinks, what he feels, what he says, and what he does are all the same. He does not need notes. You and I, we think one thing, feel another, say a third, and do a fourth. So we need notes and files to keep track. Gandhi doesn't do that. So I guess for me, it's, you can't live in a departmentalized world where you're with staff this way. You're with obviously you're going to let loose, and, it looks different, but overall, how you treat people and how you handle life, if you departmentalize too much and you're almost a different person in different scenarios, I think that eventually people see through that. So if you're an honest person with integrity and drive, and your staff, your students, your family, friends, your community all see that common denominator in you, I think that's going to win dividends. So I would say, like, that's the big thing I took from this section of the book, is just being authentic and being a real person.
Ah, that's an amazing takeaway. I really appreciate you taking the time to join me to debrief on this section of the book and to share your thoughts and some of your great stories. So it's been a pleasure. Thank you, Monty.
Yeah. Thank you, Wendy.
That brings us to the close of episode 2 and our discussion on You Can Do Something About This. In episode 3, we'll move into the first wave of self-trust, which is pages 42 to 60. My guest will be Josh Wrinkle, the principal at Rochester High School, who will share how credibility shapes his work with students, staff, and parents. Be sure to read pages 42 through 60 before tuning in. Covey's test on credibility is especially thought-provoking in this section, and we'll dig into that together. And as always, keep leading with trust.